Episode 8 of Season 2 of The Fallout Show succeeded in weaving together many of the threads of this story into a satisfying finale. It answered so many of our questions, but left us with many more. Let's pick the episode apart and figure out everything it's trying to tell us. We start with the Legion. The chaos that the ghoul set ablaze in the Legion camp reignited the civil war between the two opposing sides. In the midst of the chaos, the legate grabs the body of Caesar and drags his bones into a tent. And then, doing something that they really should have done, right after Caesar died, he fishes for the note in Caesar's pocket that declares who his heir would be. Another legionary walks into the tent to observe, and as the legate opens the paper, he discovers that it reads, "I am Caesar. I am the Legion. It ends with me." These words are completely within the character of Caesar as we know him from the events of Fallout New Vegas.
God damn it, go away! Come back when I've had some sleep. Disturb me again and I'll have you killed.
And they echo the observations of Joshua Graham, who co-founded the Legion with Edward Sallow, the original Caesar. If Caesar dies during our gameplay, and if we mention this to Joshua Graham, he says,
"I think only Caesar can lead the Legion. I've never met anyone who could take his place. I couldn't. I never had a mind for logistics. No. The Legion dies with Caesar."
Joshua Graham thought that. Caesar himself thought that. But Caesar is dead, and his last wishes are not good enough for the legate. The legionary who entered the tent says, "What does the paper say? Who's the next Caesar?" The legate arises and says,
"Caesar's dead. Long live Caesar."
And he stabs the only witness to death. And this, I think, is a wonderful touch. The Legion, as we know, has pieced together their Roman armor from sport uniforms and a variety of other things they have found in the wasteland. And here we see that they're using Corvega hubcaps as armor plating. With the only witness dead, the legate consumes the piece of paper. He takes the Corona Triumphalis off the skull of Caesar, and placing it upon his own head, he steps out of the tent. Presumably his side of the Legion was victorious. We saw while he was dragging the bones of Caesar that his Caesar was killed in battle. If we assume that the other Legion had their Caesar and legate die in battle as well, then there's no one left to oppose him, which means he can unite the Legion. He states his intentions. They will invade the promised land known as Vegas, and there they will build a palace.
Caesar's palace.
That's right, Caesar's Palace, which of course is a famous hotel and resort in our world's Vegas. "To New Vegas," shouts the new Caesar, and the Legion says, "Hooah!" But 200 years ago, Cooper and Barb were at the Las Vegas airport getting ready to go back to California. They had just finished giving cold fusion to the President of the United States, someone they thought would keep it safe and use it to better humanity. They're drinking champagne in the terminal, and Barb says,
"After all this, I'm thinking Bakersfield isn't such a bad idea."
Which of course is the place where Cooper said he wanted to retire to in Season 1.
I think about it. Quitting showbiz, buying us a ranch up in Bakersfield, back to being a real cowboy again.
And Cooper says,
"After all this, I say we go out as far as Colorado."
But then Hank McClane catches them up. We learn that Hank and Stephanie spent all night talking. He thinks she has a great resume, and he's really hoping that Bud Askins can get her a job at Vault-Tec. At the end of their night together, he proposed to her and she accepted. "Congratulations, you two," say Barb and Cooper. And Hank says, "My parents are gonna kill me." They run off, and Barb and Cooper drink. They start walking the terminal. They pass a Vault-Tec billboard, which reads, "You never know." They pass a Lucky 38 billboard, which reads, "You never know." And then the phone rings.
I begin, I've got you.
But it's not one phone. It's not two phones. It's every payphone in the terminal. They all ring simultaneously. It catches the attention of everyone in the terminal. Cooper steps forward and picks up the receiver. It's the voice of House.
I want you to know that it wasn't me.
He says, whatever it is that's about to happen, I want you to know that it wasn't me. I told you, there are far worse people than I. And then Cooper notices it. Men in suits and fedoras trailing him, stalking him. You bet on hope, says House, and you lost. Coop drops the receiver. He turns to his wife. Act surprised. Let me take the fall. I acted alone. You didn't know anything. No, says Barb. We can fight this together. But he looks her in the eyes and says, for her. For their daughter, Janie. They kiss a final time. And the men who have been stalking them approach Cooper and arrest him. They're arresting him under the authority of the House Un-American Activities Committee. I suppose that's why House called. He wanted to make sure that Cooper knew that even though his name was on whatever legislation they're using to arrest him, that this wasn't him. It was someone bigger than him. They drag Cooper away. Barb is in tears, and Cooper mouths, I love you. Fast forward 200 years. Hank McClane's wife, Stephanie, is still cornered in the overseer's office inside of Vault 32. The residents of the vault are pounding on the door. Open up, they chant, open up. And Chet is looking so smug. At last, things are not going her way. But Steph still has one trick up her sleeves. She pulls out Hank's keepsakes box, and inside is not a vial of FEV. Instead, it's a black Pip-Boy, emblazoned with the Enclave logo. The dwellers of Vault 32 say that they need to deliver a strong message to management. Death to management, says one. And the dwellers begin a chant. Death to management. But Chet has heard that phrase before. He saw it written in blood on the walls of the vault the very first time he set foot in Vault 32 with Norm. And what happened to the people who cried death for management then? They were all killed. The entire vault went crazy. And now it's happening again. And Chet is a little freaked out. Steph boots up her Pip-Boy. Copyright 2076. Executive version. No holotape found. Initiating emergency Enclave frequency. And Steph sends out a message to management. This is Stephanie Harper.
Hank McClane's wife.
Her marriage inside Vault 33 was a sham. Hank's marriage to Rose inside Vault 33 was a sham. They both left Vault 31 and married other people, while still being secretly married to each other. They're bigamists. If you can hear this, she says,
initiate phase 2.
We then get glimpses of the Enclave facility that we saw in Season 1. An iBot picks up her signal and flies away. An Enclave terminal inside the facility begins to transcribe it. Communications accessed via satellite Vault-Tec 32. Orders: 1. Complete, authorized eyes only. 2. Redacted, accessing protocol downloading. Phase 2 initiated. Request received. We then hear an overlay of the radio messages that both Hank McClane and his son Norm sent over the radio to the investors. The Enclave picked them up too. And we get a beautiful exterior shot of this Enclave facility. And as we suspected, it is deep in the mountains. But which mountains? Are they the mountains of California? Or could they be mountains a bit more east? Maybe the mountains of Colorado? Meanwhile, Maximus is toe-to-toe with a deathclaw outside the gate to New Vegas in Freeside. Thaddeus comes forward to try to help, but Maximus tells them all to stay behind him. The deathclaw roars, and the residents of Freeside flee into the buildings. Maximus bends down, ready to charge, but then he hears a beep. He looks on his console and says, "Weapons activated."
Hot dog.
He then then shoots huge armor-piercing slugs out of a pack on his back. He leaps into the sky with his forearm jets and uses rockets attached to his forearms to annihilate another deathclaw. Then he begins to melee fight the deathclaws. He's tearing them up, but they're not going down easy. One deathclaw bites into his helmet, and then Maximus blows him away with the slugs from his backpack. Inside the structure, the residents of Freeside begin taking bets on who will win, Maximus or the deathclaws. Of course, everyone starts placing bets against Maximus, but Thaddeus has seen Maximus fight. And so he races forward and says,
500 says he wins.
"You don't have that kind of money," they say. But then he empties his pockets. A horde of bottle caps falls to the ground, and he says,
I used to make money for a living.
which is just my favorite line from Thaddeus so far. He did used to make money for a living. He literally pressed bottle caps in the Sunset Sarsaparilla bottling factory. But the fight outside is still going on. And it's here that the people inside begin to realize that if Maximus loses, they're all dead. But not even that revelation is enough for them to take up arms and help him. They continue with their betting. Maximus is struggling. He's run out of ammo for his backpack and his wrist guns. But as a deathclaw attacks, a shot rings out and fells it. It was Thaddeus on the roof. He may be missing an arm, but using his foot and his left hand, he managed to shoot the deathclaw. "Thank you," says Maximus, and they wave at each other. But there are more deathclaws, and Thaddeus has to reload his weapon. Maximus is being absolutely mauled in the streets of Freeside. He manages to rip the jaw off of a deathclaw that was gnawing on him, but his power armor is spent. It's not responding to him anymore. He can't get up. But he casts his mind back to his family in Shady Sands, and he remembers his father saying,
You're a good boy, Max.
He doesn't know how he's gonna do it, but he knows what he has to do. He rolls over and crawls out of his power armor. He finds a roulette wheel that he uses as a shield and picks up a pool cue. And in one of the most epic scenes in the entire series, he marches alone into the streets of Freeside to face a pack of deathclaws with a pool cue. And the pool cue is a weapon in the games. We find the pool cue in both Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. I wonder what legendary effects it has. The bartender of the Atomic Wrangler realizes that Maximus is just a kid. He's the only one to pick up a weapon and say that they have to help him. But no one else listens. No one else does a thing. Thaddeus is on the roof trying desperately to reload his weapon with one arm. Maximus sees a vision. Maximus is reminded of what a hero should look like. He roars in the face of these deathclaws, and the deathclaws charge. But then a shot rings out in the streets of Freeside. Maximus looks up at Thaddeus, and Thaddeus says, "It wasn't me. It was them." And from the roof of the Silver Rush Casino squats an NCR sniper. And they recreate the exact same slow-motion shot that we see in the intro cinematic to Fallout New Vegas. Only instead of killing a raider, this shot takes out another deathclaw. The missing NCR squad has arrived. Banners flying, it marches into Freeside, and it's filled with NCR Rangers and NCR foot soldiers. They stop before Maximus. They stand at attention, and their leader says,
We got it from here.
And Maximus says, yeah, it's probably a good idea. It was so wonderful seeing a legit NCR force stroll into Freeside in all its glory. The NCR Ranger kit is a little different than it was depicted in Fallout New Vegas. The Ranger helmets, in particular, have a little bit of a metal bandana just above the eyes instead of looking like a World War II era helmet. But they're equipped with 50 caliber long-range sniper rifles, assault rifles, shotguns. Where has this squad been for the past 18 years? Meanwhile, in the Vault-Tec building in California, the Vault 31 residents are dragging Norm through the hallway. The only person trying to stop them from harming Norm is Claudia, the woman he befriended. "What are you gonna do to him?" she cries. And Ronnie says, "You're not one of us either, Claudia. You only work for Vault-Tec for a week." She pushes them off of him, and this enrages Ronnie. He pushes her into the wall. But in so doing, she accidentally activates the elevator. And they all know what was inside the elevator. The doors open, but nothing emerges. This red shirt steps forward and peers down the shaft and utters some famous last words.
There's nothing there. I guess the roaches really don't get that big out.
Rad roaches attack from the shaft, immediately kills the red shirt, and descends on the rest of the Vault 31 residents. They all flee into one of the offices. Norm takes time to bat a rad roach away from a struggling Vault 31er, saving his life. He flees ahead of him into the office, but when Norm tries to get in, Ronnie pushes him away. "Not you," he says, and thrusts him to the ground. Ronnie tries to close the door, but the rad roaches descend upon it. They overpower him and push the door open. The door closes, and the rad roaches begin to feast on everyone inside. Much later, Norm crawls to the door. Peering through the glass, he sees that everyone is dead. Their blood spatters the walls. He opens the door to see if he can find any sign of life. Only one person is moving. It's Claudia! Of course. She managed to kill a rad roach with a screwdriver. She's wounded, but she's still alive. He drags her out of the room, places her in a cart, and drags her off into the wastes. Meanwhile, in the Lucky 38 casino, the ghoul at last has his audience with Mr. House. And here is really the only time the show tells us what happened to House between the events of New Vegas and now. House says that over the years his body became something of a target for wandering travelers with something to prove. And then he begins to list all the ways his body was harmed. He's been poisoned, shot, bludgeoned with a crowbar. And this harkens back to the end of credits sequence that we saw earlier in the series, where we saw his life support pod. We noticed at the time that his arm was hanging out of it, but if we look closely, there's a bullet hole in the glass. Could House have been describing the courier when he said that he was attacked by a wanderer with something to prove? Could the courier have shot House through the glass of his life support pod? Could the courier have bludgeoned him to death with a crowbar instead of the golf club that we used to get the Bioshock achievement during Fallout New Vegas? And seeing this scene and hearing what House says, I think we've got compelling evidence that the Yes Man ending may be the canonical ending to New Vegas. I'll expound upon this in more detail in an upcoming video, but basically, we know that the courier gave House the platinum chip, because only with the platinum chip could House have activated his Mark II Securitrons, which we know he did, as their face briefly flashes on the screen of one in the Sunset Sarsaparilla bottling plant. But instead of finishing the game by siding with House, I get the impression that the courier sided with Yes Man, not only due to the violence that House says was inflicted upon his body by a wanderer with something to prove, because in order to side with Yes Man, we do have to go into House's chamber and kill his body. But also due to the conspicuous placement of this Securitron. Now, yes, it's just one Securitron chassis, and there were many Securitrons in this room, including Marilyn and Jane. But if we side with Yes Man, after killing House and getting rid of all of the other Securitrons, Yes Man rolls into this room and leaps from his Securitron chassis into the House mainframe. And the moment he does, his body falls down like this. A scene that is almost perfectly mirrored in what we see in the show. I previously thought the House ending had to be the canonical one because we see House on the big screen. He's still alive, but the show is telling us that Robert House found a way to immortalize himself by digitizing himself as a program in a computer network. And even if the courier sides with Yes Man and kills House's body, he still might not have destroyed House. But Cooper doesn't want to hear House talk anymore. While he was talking, House was secretly trying to close and lock the doors leading to the cold fusion generator. Coop places his Gauss rifle between them and threatens to blow up the cold fusion reactor. House informs him that if he does, who knows what'll happen, but cold fusion is packed with unlimitless energy, and so whatever detonation occurs here might reach other planets. Coop says that most people don't have much to live for anyway, so let's cut to the chase. Where's my family and why didn't you tell me about Vault-Tech's vault for managers? And much in the way, House had an arrangement with the courier.
I'll be happy to satisfy your every curiosity once the platinum chip has been delivered.
House says that he didn't reveal all of the information he had because Cooper had yet to bring him the cold fusion diode. Had he done so, House would have revealed all. Coop says, all right, here's the new deal. You bring me to my family, I leave your batteries on. House agrees, but says that in order to lead him to the vault, he needs Cooper to bring him with him on a Pip-Boy, something that Cooper really doesn't want to have to put on. Like it or not, Mr. Howard, House says,
everyone works for me eventually.
And so Cooper picks up the Pip-Boy. House takes him into tunnels beneath the Lucky 38. And during the walk, House begins to expound upon how he had his claws in everything. Vault-Tech wanted an impenetrable vault beneath the city. House rigged everything in Vegas in order to protect it, he says. He rigged every slot machine, every roulette wheel, and even rigged Vault-Tech's impenetrable vault for managers. But then he tells us that he miscalculated because this vault doesn't belong to Vault-Tech. It belongs to their investors, the Enclave. He didn't realize the Enclave even existed until he saw the deathclaw that Cooper saw while fighting in Alaska. And here, House chastises Coop. He says that you delivered cold fusion to the people who posed the greatest threat to the world. You were their unwitting servant, he says. Then Coop says,
I am what I am.
Is that what you'll tell your family when you find them? Says House. He says that when it came to predicting the bombs, he was off by just a smidge, which correlates well with what we learned during the events of Fallout New Vegas. House tells the courier the exact same thing when we talk with him about the platinum chip.
By 2065, I deemed it a mathematical certainty that an atomic war would devastate the Earth within 15 years. Every projection I ran confirmed it. I knew I couldn't save the world, nor did I care to, but I could save Vegas, and in the process, perhaps save mankind. I set to work immediately. I thought I had plenty of time to prepare. As it turned out, I was 20 hours short.
But when it came to controlling the future, he says that he was wholly outclassed by an invisible adversary, the Enclave. And then he says that it was the Enclave who sicked the deathclaws on Vegas.
It was they who set the deathclaws on Vegas.
We were led to believe, from the bartender in the Atomic Wrangler, that the deathclaws came up from Quarry Junction. And maybe they did, but if they did, we're learning now from House that they were sent to Vegas by the Enclave. Which means that after the events of Fallout New Vegas, with House out of the picture because his body was killed by the courier, with Yes Man out of the picture because he had to go offline for software upgrades, and with presumably the courier out of the picture because the courier left at some point, that even though the Legion fought in the streets of Freeside for control of Vegas, it was the Enclave who cleared Vegas out with deathclaws that they sent to the Strip. And now, says House, one of the Enclave's acolytes is here in this building. Coop at last reaches the end of the tunnel. He opens the door to step into the vault for managers.
Your family's cryo chambers are on subfloor 7.
Meanwhile, in the basement of the vault, Lucy is face to face with the mainframe, and it's none other than the head of the Congresswoman. Of course, she doesn't know who this is, but it doesn't matter. She was a person. She thinks that the person must be dead, but as she reaches forward, the head is still alive. It groans. Kill me, she pleads. No, says Lucy. Kill me, she pleads again. No, look, we can patch you up, says Lucy. Kill me, insists the Congresswoman. I can't, says Lucy. Why does everyone always want me to kill them? because this isn't the first time she's had to do this. Wilzig spared her the moral dilemma of killing him. He killed himself, but he still asked her to chop off his head, and now a talking head is asking her to destroy her head. Please, the Congresswoman begs, stop him. Kill me. Just kill me. Please. And Lucy screams, shut up! She hits the head with a crowbar and destroys the mainframe. She walks away after such a harrowing experience and leans over a balcony to catch her breath. But her father has freed himself. Why'd you go and do that, he says. And here Hank claims that Robert House wanted to turn people into machines, erase their memories, and make them suggestible enough to follow his orders. But here I think Hank actually gets the plot wrong, because while Robert House did create the mind control technology, he didn't want it for himself. We learned in a previous episode that he created it on behalf of the Enclave. He delivered it to Vault-Tec in exchange for cold fusion. And Vault-Tec, or rather their investors, were the ones who wanted to use the mind control chips. At any rate, Hank explains that what he was trying to do was add some personality to Robert's product. Who was she? Lucy asks. Congresswoman Diane Welch from Glendale. He says that he chose her because she was an ISTP on the Myers-Briggs personality test. Now, an ISTP is, according to the personality test itself, subcategorized as an artisan and further subcategorized as a crafter, someone who likes getting their hands dirty, building lots of projects, having curiosity, being diligent. Proactive crafters are called operators, and they excel at expediting their projects and getting them done. Reactive crafters are called entertainers, and their skills are in improvising. If you're thinking that this doesn't sound anything like the Congresswoman that we know, it's because the Myers-Briggs personality test is widely considered by scientists to be a form of pseudoscience, because there's no evidence behind it, and the perceived accuracy of the test relies a lot on confirmation bias. Even so, there's nothing in this personality test that talks about a person's more important traits, like kindness, goodness, having a strong moral compass. Those are all traits that Hank chose the Congresswoman for. He chose her based on this test because he wanted the mainframe to implant good personality traits in his slaves. But if she was so well-meaning and sweet, why would you do that to her? Says Lucy. And Hank says, well, Daddy's job is complicated, sweetie. What's your end game in all of this, she says. And he says, miniaturization. Soon we won't know who's been automated and who hasn't. Those who have will just have a tiny little scar on the back of their neck. He shows her his miniaturized chip. The former Legionnaire, who he now controls, steps into the scene. And Hank looks at his daughter and says,
"You'll be my little girl again."
He's planning to implant this into Lucy. You're insane, she says, and he says, you don't mean that. But if you do, very soon, you won't. The Legionary reaches for her, but she attacks back, but he overpowers her, grabbing her by the neck. This clearly distresses Hank, but he doesn't stop it. He grabs the chip. He leans in close to his daughter. We can start over, Lucy, he says. But then someone throws a knife into the back of the Legionary. He falls over dead. It's none other than the ghoul. He pulls out his gun and shoots Hank in the butt. If it was up to me, says the ghoul, it wouldn't be your ass that's bleeding out all over the floor. But it ain't up to me, he says, and he slides Lucy a gun. What say you, Vaulty? He tips his cap, showing her that there are no hard feelings between them, and he walks away. At gunpoint, Lucy marches Hank out the doors of the Lucky 38, and this is why I think that the Vault for Managers must have somehow connected to the Lucky 38. Even though we didn't find any evidence for it in the games, there must have been a tunnel system built beneath the Lucky 38 that led straight to the Vault for Managers. We see that Lucy has implanted the chip into the neck of her father. but she hasn't activated it yet. She's holding the controller in her hand. "You don't see views like this in the vault," says Hank. "You know, I spent my whole life dreaming of what it would be like to come to the surface with you. I just wanted to make all of this worthy of you," says Hank. It would have been nice to go back to the vault again, to see everyone. Norm, Betty, Stephanie.
Oh boy, Stephanie.
But we're not going back, are we? Look, the Legion is coming. You know that. With my help, you could stop them. But this time she doesn't flinch. "I need you to tell me what you're really doing here," she says. "And then," he says. She fingers the remote and says, "Then I'm gonna turn you into the father I thought you were." And here she finally confronts him. "You lied to me my whole life," she says. "I know that's how you feel," he says. "You think this is the real world, but it's not. The surface is the experiment, not the vaults." "What experiment?" says Lucy. And he tells her that he already sent his R&D out into the wasteland. They're wearing mind control chips that are the latest model, barely visible. No one will notice them. Unbeknownst to anyone, they're following orders that were written for them centuries ago, and we can imply by the Enclave. "Orders to do what?" says Lucy. "What did you do?" And he looks at her and says,
I love you, Sugar Pop.
And from his pocket he pulls another controller and he erases his own mind. Lucy tries to stop him, but she's too late. When she gets to him, he stares blankly off into the distance. She sits before him, and then she hugs him, weeping. A moment later, he begins to blink, and he looks around, and then he notices Lucy, and he pushes her away. "Miss," he says, "you have a little smudge on your face. May I remove it?" And she says yes. And he fixes her hair, removes the smudge, and for a moment, he's the loving, doting father he should have been. But then he stares off into space, and Lucy realizes that the man she's known her entire life, the man who raised her, for good or for ill, is gone. She stands and walks into the middle of Vegas, feeling truly and utterly alone. When she was out in the wasteland, she had a purpose. She was going to find and save her father. But now he's gone. The ghoul's gone. What will she do? But then...
Lucy?
Maximus enters the strip from Freeside. She recognizes him, and they race to each other and hug before the Lucky 38. Meanwhile, the ghoul is still looking for his family, and House just won't stop talking. "If you find your family, I'll be happy for you," he says. "But what then? The Enclave is still out there. How will you protect them? With the Enclave out there, there is no safety, as I tried to warn you all those years ago." At last, he reaches the cryopods for management. He finds the pod of his wife and his daughter, and House very politely asks permission first. "Shall I open it?" "Open it," he says. The glass slides away, and after 200 years of searching for his wife and child, he finds...
What a shame.
You bet on hope, and you lost. The ghoul gets closer. House continues to talk. "You've been searching all this time. You're still living in a world of fiction, a world that isn't real." But Coop sees something inside Barb's pod. It's a postcard for Colorado. He reaches in and flips it over, and in his wife's handwriting he reads, "Colorado was a good idea."
After all this, I say we go out as far as Colorado.
And a smile begins to creep upon his face. And he says,
For the first time in 200 long-ass years, I know my family is alive.
He takes off the Pip-Boy and tosses it on the ground. House shouts at him. "The Enclave is still out there. We're not done, Mr. Howard. We have business."
Not with me, you don't.
And he walks away. House was trying to use Cooper the way he used the courier, but Coop wasn't having any of it. But House is not wrong. The Enclave is still out there. But the more pressing concern is that the Legion is on the march, and united, carrying their new Caesar, they march upon Vegas. Lucy and Maximus enter the Lucky 38, and they reach House's suite. But House isn't there. The screen says signal lost. But notice the difference. Before Coop powered the Lucky 38 with cold fusion, the terminal read no signal. But now it reads signal lost. Does that mean that Coop came back to the Lucky 38 and retrieved cold fusion? Max and Lucy walk to the window and they see the Legion troops marching. And echoing words that Maximus said a couple of episodes ago concerning the Brotherhood War, she says, I could have prevented this. There's gonna be a war and it's all my fault. Yeah, well, says Maximus, welcome to the wasteland. They hold hands, and as the camera pans out, we see House's terminal. And for a brief moment, House appears. What does that mean? I want to point out that Coop never promised that if House showed him where his family was, that he would give House cold fusion. His exact words were,
You get me in that vault, and I'll leave your batteries on.
I'll leave your batteries on. Now, of course, that could mean that he would leave him cold fusion, or it could mean that he would use cold fusion to recharge House's batteries. He never promised House a full charge, maybe a half charge, a partial charge. Could that be why House's face is not on the screen when Lucy and Maximus arrive? Could he be trying to conserve power because Coop took cold fusion with him? Was cold fusion only installed long enough for House to charge up only some of his backup batteries? Whatever the answer is, House is not gone. The Legion is on the march. And during the credits pan-out scene, we see that the NCR has taken control of the strip. Their posters are everywhere. Their flags drape barricades and hang from building walls. They're giving free vials to ghouls to keep them from going feral. They've got a recruitment booth in the streets of Freeside just outside of the Atomic Wrangler. Join the NCR. And as the camera completely pans out of the city, it sweeps through the Legion camp. They have besieged the city, and they've begun crucifying anyone they can find. But as the camera turns, we see super mutant blood bags hanging from billboards. And as the camera comes to rest, we see a billboard. Take your family to the Rockies, Colorado, and another super mutant body bag hanging from the billboard. I can only speculate that they're trying to tell us a little bit about Season 3. Clearly, we've got a battle here in Vegas, so part of Season 3 will take place in New Vegas. But the ghoul has made his way into the Rocky Mountains. He's searching. And what do we remember from Fallout lore is in the Rocky Mountains? Vault Zero. Vault Zero was from Fallout Tactics. It was built within the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. Now in Fallout Tactics, Vault Zero was the Calculator's lair. The Calculator was a pre-war supercomputer. It was designed before the Zax series of computers, so it's not a true artificial intelligence, but it uses human brains for processing power. Its purpose was to organize humanity's re-emergence from the vaults after the bombs dropped. But of course, we have no idea what the state of Vault Zero is by the time of the show, because the events of Fallout Tactics have happened before the events of the show. And there are several endings to Fallout Tactics, including the Calculator being destroyed, General Barnaky merging with the Calculator and becoming a human-computer hybrid, and many more possibilities. But you know, just because Vault Zero was in Colorado doesn't necessarily mean the show is going to take us to Vault Zero even if they go to Colorado. The song plays and the credits roll until they fade to black. But if we wait until after the credits, a battle is still waging at Area 51. Dane is walking through an infirmary. Brotherhood troops are injured and bleeding. Dane approaches Quintus's chamber, but they have something that Quintus has asked for, and so they're allowed in. They approach Quintus. The remnants you requested, Elder Cleric, says Dane. And open it, says Quintus. What is it, says Dane. And Quintus says, Out of the virtue in my heart, I tried to unite the Brotherhood. But Quintus the Unifier is now dead. Quintus the Destroyer is born. And he unrolls the schematics for Liberty Prime. What can we deduce from this? Quintus wants to get his hands on Liberty Prime to defeat all other chapters in the Brotherhood so that he can rule them as a supreme dictator. But he doesn't have Liberty Prime. Arthur Maxon and the Commonwealth have Liberty Prime. It was unearthed in the bowels of the Pentagon decades ago by Elder Lyons. It was rebuilt and its power problems solved by Madison Lee, and it was deployed against the Enclave in the Capital Wasteland, whereupon it was destroyed by the Enclave. But its pieces were hauled to Boston, and it was put back together by Arthur Maxon's Brotherhood of Steel. So Arthur Maxon has Liberty Prime. Quintus doesn't. How will he get his hands on it? But then again, maybe that's not his goal. After all, he is holding the schematics for it. Is Quintus going to build his own Liberty Prime? These are the schematics for Liberty Prime Alpha. Evidently, a precursor to the Liberty Prime that was eventually created beneath the Pentagon, an earlier Alpha model. And I love the detail here on the blueprints. Strategic Arms Division, U.S. Army, General Atomics, Robco, and Mass Fusion. And that's a perfect callback to Fallout 4 and Fallout 3, because in Fallout 3 we learned that Liberty Prime was a joint effort between General Atomics and Robco. And Mass Fusion was the nuclear energy company in Boston that created the beryllium agitator, a device used to jumpstart Liberty Prime's reactor. Madison Lee got Liberty Prime to work in the Capital Wasteland without a beryllium agitator, but perhaps the design always called for one, which is why in Fallout 4, the Brotherhood sends us to Mass Fusion to collect the beryllium agitator. What an amazing episode. And what an amazing series! I gotta say, I enjoyed it even more than Season 1. And even though the season is now over, I still have so much more to say about it. Characters have changed. Locations have changed. Factions have changed. There is so much to dissect, and I hope you'll be there with me for it. If you don't want to miss my upcoming videos dissecting Season 2, be sure to subscribe. But also, I'd love to hear what you gotta say. What did you think of Season 2 and Episode 8 in particular? Is there anything in this episode that I missed that you noticed? Be sure to share with me in the comments. If you like what I do and you want to support me, you can subscribe on YouTube, become a patron on Patreon, or buy something from my merch shop. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're watching this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon with more Fallout videos.
Let's just hope the floor doesn't give out on us first.
Damn. I don't see the agitator anywhere. It must have been moved. Let's check out that terminal over there.
Let's just hope it hasn't wandered too far.
This place has seen better days, that's for sure.
Going down.
Movement detected.
Sit ambush! Open fire!
Not this
Fire
time!
will!
Solid,
Throwing weapons